hope you're well. My name's Kim Leadbeater and I work as an ambassador for the Jo Cox Foundation, and I also chair an amazing group of volunteers here in West Yorkshire where I live called More in Common Batley and Spen. It's an absolute delight and honour to have been asked to be involved in this year's Leeds Festival of Kindness, Compassion and Wellbeing. As I said, I have a role with the Jo Cox Foundation, and the reason I have that role is because Jo Cox, the MP for Batley and Spen, who was murdered in June 2016, was my sister. And since that horrific day, when my life changed forever, I've worked as hard as I possibly can to try and create a positive legacy for Jo, and to ensure that as much positive energy and action as possible is created from the most horrific of circumstances. And when I think about Jo and the kind of person she was, it really resonates with this festival. She was genuinely one of the kindest, most generous, compassionate people you could meet. And I know people always say that when people have died or been killed, but she really was. That doesn't mean she was perfect. And actually, on a personal level, she was quite annoying at times, very forgetful and frustrating. But she had no ego and no agenda. She worked for over 15 years in the voluntary sector, in countries where people often had little food, little water, and sadly, often very little hope. And having done that, Jo chose to come back to the UK to represent the community and the constituency where she grew up and where I still live and my parents still live, here in Batley and Spen. I am constantly told stories about kindness that Jo showed to people in our local community, whether that was parents who she helped get a diagnosis of autism for their children, or whether it was elderly people whose doors she'd knocked on when she was campaigning and stopped to have a chat and a cup of tea, and triggered the work that Jo did on loneliness that we've continued through the foundation. There's always someone who tells me how kind Jo was to them. And it only seems fit then that the work of the Jo Cox Foundation continues in that vein. Indeed, one of the things that has kept myself and my parents going for the last 4 years has been the kindness and compassion that has been shown to us. Locally, nationally and internationally, we were scooped up and looked after by so many people, obviously family and friends, but also lots of total strangers who didn't know us and maybe had never even met Jo. But that kindness and compassion in the darkest of times can make such a huge difference. It often costs nothing, but it means everything. And that's why this festival is so important. If I think to my life prior to Jo's murder, my career was actually in health and wellbeing, and that's another reason that this festival is really special. Looking at health and wellbeing from a very holistic perspective, not just physically how we are, but psychologically, socially, emotionally, how we're doing, and making sure that we keep an eye on our overall wellbeing. So it's great that this festival has taken place, and I know it will have been a week of wonderful activities with lots of things happening that can inspire us. I love the fact that you're taking a holistic approach to kindness and compassion and wellbeing. So thinking about how we can all be a little bit kinder and more understanding, not just in our personal lives, but also maybe at work, maybe in every other area of our lives as well. I think that's really important going forward. Indeed, the last 6 months have been inspirational in many ways. We've had this most horrific situation with lockdown and the coronavirus, and we've all been under this dark cloud. And whilst there has been this huge sense of loss, and for many people that has been sadly the loss of loved ones, and for all of us a loss of our freedoms and our normal routines, we've also seen huge amounts of kindness and compassion taking place. Through More in Common Batley and Spen, the volunteer group that I lead, we've been involved with the local on-the-ground response. So in those early months, we were helping to give food parcels out and get people's prescriptions to them. We joined up with the Kirklees Befriending Service to make sure that people were getting phone calls and regular contact if they were living on their own. And it's been amazing to see that happening all across West Yorkshire, all across the city of Leeds, and actually all across the country. I suppose what makes me a little bit sad is that it often takes a crisis or something really bad to happen for us to see the best of humanity. And I guess the real challenge is how we keep those acts of kindness and compassion going as we come out of this situation or as the situation develops further. That's the real challenge. It's a bit like when it snows, isn't it? Suddenly everyone speaks to each other and wants to chat. Let's keep that going as we move forward. The work of the Jo Cox Foundation is really focused around kindness and compassion, as I say, because that's pretty much how Jo was. Two big things that we do. One is the Great Get Together campaign that we do every year in June on what would have been Jo's birthday. And this is basically an annual celebration where we ask people to organise events in their communities and to come together, get to know people, new people, people who may be different from yourself, people you may disagree with on things, but to bond on a human level. Focusing, as Jo said in her maiden speech in Parliament, that we do have more in common than that which divides us. Sometimes we just need the opportunity to remember that and the platform to develop those connections. So we did the Great Get Together in June this year, and much of the activity took place virtually, and that was amazing to see. But actually we also encouraged lots of simple acts of kindness at a community level. So we had people taking baking round to their neighbours, we had people making an extra phone call, sending postcards, writing letters. I did jigsaw swaps with one of my neighbours. So those just little acts of kindness that can actually make a massive difference in somebody's day. The other thing that we've done through the Jo Cox Foundation is we set up an initiative called the Connection Coalition. And this was really focusing on how we could keep people connected during lockdown and these months that we've experienced. And it's amazing. We had 500 organisations sign up to the Connection Coalition, large and small, from across the whole country, nationally and locally. And I love that because it was a really good example of how organisations can work with kindness and without their own agenda or their own ego, just pulling together to do something for the greater good. And if you want to find out any more about that, we've got a Connection Coalition website that you can look at, particularly focusing on things like loneliness and isolation and mental health and well-being. So I'm really proud to be part of this festival. It's wonderful that it's taking place, and congratulations to the organisers who flipped it and put it online, made it virtual, but still enabled people to keep connected and still enabled the amazing things to go ahead. I think the message going forward from me is, let's keep this going. Let's not stop those acts of kindness that we've seen in recent weeks and months. Just think about every time during your day what difference you could make to someone's life. If you just reach out, you have a conversation, you make a phone call, you put someone's bins out, whatever it is, it really does make a difference. And the feeling that you get when you've done that is so special. The volunteers that work with me here in Batley and Spen are just amazing. And they do it because they want to help people. But actually the feeling that you get yourself is also amazing. So let's keep the kindness going, keep the connections going. If you can, as we come towards the winter, we'll be doing the winter Great Get Together. And if you want to be involved, please look at the Great Get Together website to find out how you can do more within your communities to be part of that celebration. So, as I say, kindness often costs nothing, but can mean everything. So go forward from this amazing festival with kindness, compassion, and well-being at the centre of everything that you do. Thanks ever so much for listening, and well done for a great festival.
Hi, my name's Paul Heaney. I'm a writer, and I've been asked by Kind of Leeds Festival to write a poem on kindness. In fact, it was used, I presented the poem for the launch of the festival last year, September 2019. So I'm going to read it now, and it's called Kindness. Kindness. What does it mean? Let's say it's love, but love in action. It's the gentleness of being there for someone, listening to someone, thinking of their needs. It's being considerate of others, of oneself. Oh yes, being kind to oneself, as much as to others. There's a kind of magic about kindness. It's the gentle kinder in us. It's the selfless self that leads fearless of giving, fearless of simply being there. There is a specialness about kindness. It makes a path for love to grow, you know? There's a kind of wholeness to kindness. It's the love in action that connects us to each other, to the world around us. It's the thing that helps us make sense of the world and helps us make sense of us. It sews together the disconnect about us. For every stitch of kindness knits a warmer world that comforts us, dresses the wounds that have hurt so many of us. It is the salve of salvation that bears the grief from loss. It is the hand on the shoulder that silently speaks to us, that says we care. Kindness, it's the kind of thing that changes things, that changes everything, that changes lives, that changes worlds. Imagine a world of kindness. Imagine the world revolving around kindness. It would be a revolution that could turn lives upside down, the right way up. A revolution of compassion. A revolution that changes the way we behave with each other, that changes our relationships to each other, how we relate to life all around us. That would change lives. Revolutionize. A world revolving around kindness. It would involve care, giving attention, being considerate of the smallest creature, being considerate of the person in front of you, in that queue, in that car, on the phone, on the bus, on the tube. Kindness on the move. Imagine kindness at the hub of our lives, turning the wheel of life, turning our lives and that of others into love, into a revolution that puts consideration at the center of all our actions, love in action. That would be a kind of magic that would transform just an act into an act of kindness, lifting the world from a state of blindness into the light of sublimeness. Nothing complicated or difficult here, just simple acts of kindness that lifts the downtrodden with a simple smile to cheer. If there's one thing beyond measure that can guide destiny's sweet surrender, that can change the slow gears of evolution into all-changing revolution, it is kindness. It's kindness that leads this revolution. Thank you.